All right, I was going to give you a little break here. In a way, this feels like going backwards because it's actually multiple choice. But I want to show you another kind of advancement in assessment that is, I think, very interesting work. And this comes from Jim Minstrel, who is a former secondary school physics teacher who has actually been doing some of the most interesting work in science assessment I know of in the United States for quite a few years. And he's now built a whole organization around doing this and works with quite a few academic professors and other and teachers, and he's working with SRI too, so that's why I know about this. But this is from, this is actually a question, and why don't you just to have a little bit of a break, spend a few minutes at your table. What I'd like you to do is, I don't know, this may seem terribly simple or it may not, but there's a table. There's a book on the table. Okay, so there's no fancy virtual environment here. Which statement best describes the forces resulting from an interaction between the book and the table? Okay? Now what I'd like you to do is in your table here, not the one on the picture, just try to decide which one you think. So we have 4 choices here. You can see them. The book pushes down on the table with the same force that the table pushes up on the book. The force by the table is equal and opposite to the force of gravity. The gravitational force is equal to the weight of the book. There are no forces due to an interaction in this situation since gravity is the only force acting on the book. So what I'd like you to do at your table is just share your ideas. I'm not going to have you tell your ideas to me. I'd just like you to spend a few minutes sharing them with each other. And if you want to get up and have a little, you know, if anyone needs to get a drink of water or use the washroom, this is a good time to do it. So why don't we take, you know, just like 5 minutes. So as soon as you figured out which one of these is the best description of the forces on the book, you can go get some water. Okay, and just keep it to yourself. And when we come back, all right. Well, this of course occurs not out of the blue. Talk about a drop-in from the sky assessment. That's the way I treated this for you. But I wanted you just to kind of look at it and see the nature of the different items there, because what's different about this assessment, you can see it's not very fancy. It's on the web, but it's not very fancy. But what's different about it is the way it was constructed, and I guess you can't read any of this, so I'm going to try to do it for you. What they did was they looked at the concepts that it's important to learn in this part of physics. It's force and motion. And what they did was they took each of, you would think of it as an important concept. Jim Minstrel calls it a facet cluster, but it's just a different words. And so the idea here is that the student understands that all forces arise out of an interaction between 2 objects, and that these forces are equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. So that's, in a way, that's the target understanding that you would like students to get in this secondary physics course. But from his experience and the experience of research studies and from other teachers, they knew some ways that students often think about this situation that are not the way physicists think about them. And so those are what some people call misconceptions. But it's not that they're just random mistakes. It's a different way of thinking about how forces interact in the world before you have a mature understanding. So in this one, 40, the student identifies equal force pairs, but indicates that both forces act on the same object. For the example of a book at rest on a table, the gravitational force down on the book and the normal force up by the table on the book were identified as an action-reaction pair. That actually has a number. And then here's another one. The student uses the effects of a force as an indication of the relative magnitudes of the forces in an interaction. And there are various versions of this. Here's a worse understanding. The student indicates that the forces in a pair do not have equal magnitude because the objects are dissimilar in some property, like bigger, stronger, faster. And here's another one. The student believes that inanimate passive objects cannot exert a force. In general, his system, he uses the thing at the top, the 0, 0, those are the target understandings. And in general, as the number gets bigger, it's more problematic. But the important thing is these are different kinds of understanding. And what Minstrel does is, I don't know if you noticed, but on that question, he'll give students a bunch of situations, and they may in fact be doing drawings or something else. But the different possible actions are all categorized by the facet. So in this case, those of you who like to know whether you're right or not, A, that's facet 1. That was the target facet. Okay. B is facet 40. C is one they couldn't classify, but students often have this idea on this particular item. And then D is facet 90. Now, the same facet labels would go for a whole lot of different items on Minstrel's assessments, and these are things that he's developed. And the important point about this is, it's not, what you're trying to do here is an assessment for learning. You do these assessments in the course of instruction in order to be able to target the way you teach. So if you have a student who is showing facet 40 on a lot of different items, your instruction will be different than if you have a student who's showing facet 90. So in other words, it's a diagnostic assessment. It's designed to be diagnostic. And we don't have a heck of a lot of diagnostic assessments in education, actually. We have some for early reading,